John Osborne here, substituting for Thomas and Dave for the Basecamp Trading Daily Member video. So first we'll take a look at the news for tomorrow. We do have at 9:45 we have PMI Manufacturing Index, but more importantly we have ISM Manufacturing Index at 10 o'clock, also construction spending at 10. So those three events will possibly move the markets. We also have three Fed speakers speaking: James Bullard at 9:05, Robert Kaplan at 9:30, and Patrick Harker at 10:15. Let's go ahead and walk through our futures, then we'll walk through the indices and onto a few stocks. We'll start out by looking at crude. Crude was affected today by a closed-door OPEC meeting, which finally delivered some news, and it ended up breaking through this pennant pattern that we had, moved all the way down to the previous swing low, and then moved back up to retest that line, and then kind of consolidated sideways. So now the question is it going to break out of this bit of a pennant pattern that we have here? And we can see we have room that we can go down to reach this line, but we are continuing to put in higher highs here, and we're still trending higher on the daily. For RBOB, similarly, we broke through its support line on the OPEC news, and then we came back up and kind of did the same thing. We consolidated sideways. For RBOB, we do have this micro downtrend line on the daily that we can watch to see if we're breaking. We're putting in a nice upside down M or a W shape, a rounded W shape. We'll see if we can wait until we get above that line, or if we can break below this bit of a support here at the previous pivot. So really we have a descending triangle at that point. Heating oil has an interesting touch today, coming right down to touch this old trend line that we have here. There's a lot of space underneath here, but it is still the first two pivots on that trend line. So we are watching for that to either break there or bounce at that point. Gold had some big moves today, coming down quite a bit. You can see here on the 240 breaking through this trend line here, and then breaking through another trend line, and finally pulling back a little bit at the end to be a little bit bullish on the 30. So now we're consolidating sideways. What we're going to keep in mind here is the daily, because we've gone down and retested this previous pivot. It almost got down to this pretty flat trend line here. So let's watch what happens. Are we going to break through that and go lower? Or are we going to bounce and move back up? For soybean meal, we're a little bit at odds with each other today. But it's interesting here, if we look at the 4-hour pattern that we've got, we can keep an eye on this approach and see if we're going to break above or below of this area right here. So far it looks like we're mostly bearish, so it looks like it wants to break lower, but wait until it happens. Remember, soy doesn't reopen again until 8 o'clock tonight. It recloses at 8:45 tomorrow, and then again it opens at 9:45. For bonds, yesterday we broke through this trend line on the daily and bottomed out right on the 200 bar moving average, and then we ended up closing on that 200 bar moving average after making a push down and pulling back up again. So we waited a long time here as the indices moved up, and as the indices were moving up we were just sitting there in bonds, and suddenly it just popped right through that 30 seconds and moved down quite a bit, and since then we've recovered. So we're still looking bearish on our higher time frames. We'll see what happens. Again, the Dow and the S&P both moved up to new record highs, and they pulled back a little bit at the end of the day, giving us a bull flag opportunity. We'll see how that works out. So watch for that as possibly going higher on those bull flags, although it is getting quite extended. Same thing here with the S&P. We might be able to draw in a trend line across the top here. It's a little premature until we got a couple more bars, in my opinion. The NASDAQ took a beating yesterday and tried to recover some of that, but it couldn't quite get up to the bottom of its opening range from yesterday. But it did manage to recover about somewhere around the 61%, the 61.8% Fibonacci retracement, and we're going to be watching for that to perhaps go higher on a bull flag on the 120. And you can see also we've got this longer term trend line here that we have room to go down if that's where it wants to go. The euro had a nice run today. It moved up nicely from this this low that we had down here along that trend line, and then really took off and kept moving up higher, and since then we've been in a little bit of a pennant. So now we can watch to see if we can break out of that pennant. I'll go ahead and draw that in here, and it's pretty tight, so it could happen fairly quickly, but we'll have to see what happens. We're actually breaking out of it as we speak a little bit to the upside. We are looking neutral mostly across the board, maybe a little bit bullish on the higher time frames. Looking at a couple of stocks, we've got Apple. So a lot of these stocks took a beating yesterday when NASDAQ went down, and we're trying to see where they're going to end up. So if you look at our daily, you can see we've got a line across the top with a micro downtrend, but we did break through this previous pivot yesterday, and we tried to make up some ground today, but not as much as we needed to. So we'll see what happens if we can get back up towards that trend line, and we have this 30-minute trend line that we can watch for a shorter term break. For Google, you can also watch this support that we have here at 1029.65 to see if it breaks there. We are looking a little bit on the bearish side, so be careful with this one as it might drop through this support and then continue lower. So we'll see how that works. And with Amazon also tried to recover some of its losses from the previous day and got partway there, and it started to break through its trend line very late in the afternoon and then moved back up above. So again, we'll have to see what happens with these markets and see if we'll get back up to our previous highs that we were at even earlier today, or even earlier this week. Okay, and finally with Facebook, again we had that same setup where we had the drop and then I tried to make a recovery and a little bit of positive note at the end here. So we'll see if we can break above the high for the afternoon anyways, and that would get us, if we can get above 178.28. But note here that we did break through this trend line on the daily, and we just went up. Although we tried to recover, we ended up closing right on that line. So we're going to be a little bit careful of what's going on with the markets here. I don't think we have some type of a reversal happening, but it's been interesting to see what happened with the NASDAQ, and it's a 60% recovery from the drop we saw yesterday. So keep an eye on the markets, and until next time, have a great rest of your day.